father, Asanda. And Jarasandha became so protective of his daughters that he took a vow that he would destroy not only Krishna, but the entire Yadu dynasty. So Jarasandha gathered an army of 13 Akshohini divisions of soldiers, and it's a big number. And when Krishna saw Jarasandha come to the gates of Mathura, he smiled and said to Balaram, let's leave the Yadu members here safely inside the walls, the boundary walls of the city. Let's go deal with Jarasandha ourselves. So the two, Krishna and Balaram, alone, without any army behind them, completely destroyed all 17 divisions of soldiers. And it happened very quickly, something like what Ram did in destroying the 14,000 soldiers of Janistan, with great generals leading them. Only what was remaining was one person. Purposely, they left Jarasandha standing and said, you can go home now. Jarasandha was so shamed for a Kshatriya to be defeated like that. And he was really powerful. He was really powerful. But his ministers persuaded him, no, it was just one of those things. You weren't prepared. Don't give up your life, because he was thinking, what's the use? Dishonor is worse than death. No, go again. So he, in the course of, there's not very clear Shastra evidence indicating, but the best I've been able to determine, the 17 times that Jarasandha came with his soldiers spanned over a period of something like 14 years. And when the 18th time came, he came with 23 Akshohini divisions of soldiers from the east, because his kingdom was Magadha, which is now Bihar. We came from the east to Mathura, from the north, from now Afghanistan, it was a bad place then, to Kaliyavana came with his 3 million soldiers. So it was at that time, I'm mentioning all this because a chronology question came up today. Krishna took stock of the situation, Kaliyavana from the north, Jarasandha from the east, the residents of Mathura, the Yadus, may be at risk. Of course they weren't, because he's all powerful, he's the Supreme Lord. He said, you stay here, hold off the two armies, just yourself. I'm going to take the entire Yadu clan, build a city for them. So it was done in a jiffy by the architect of the demigods. And Dwaraka city was built in the sea, a city in the sea, of course on land, raised. And everyone was transferred to Dwaraka. Krishna personally settled them in their residential quarters and came back. Doesn't say how long that took, but it was, as we've said today, in a jiffy. So that's the place where Krishna spent 96 years of his 125 years. So it's really easy, you do the math. Subtract 10 years, 7 months from 125 and 96 from that, and that's how long he was in Mathura. So when this coming week, we're going to hear the details of Krishna's encounter with Kaliyavana, this 18th time that Jarasandha came. They just coordinated. They didn't send text messages or anything. They just happened to come at the same time. So Krishna ran from the battlefield as if he was afraid. Kaliyavana thought he was afraid and chased him and chased him and chased him. We'll hear all about this story. He went into a cave. Muchukunda was woken rudely by Kaliyavana, and he was cindered into ashes. Then some nice exchange. We'll hear some more between Krishna and Muchukunda. Then Krishna went back to the battlefield. Jarasandha started to challenge Krishna, but Krishna had a desire. We're going to hear more about that this coming week. Krishna's desire was, it was time to marry Rukmini. The pastime clock was up. And so he, Krishna, and Balaram ran from the battlefield, again, heading in a southerly direction this time. They climbed up a mountain. Jarasandha couldn't find them. He set the mountain on fire. They jumped from the very, very tall mountain, and unseen by anybody, celestial chariots arrived and whisked Krishna and Balaram off to Dwaraka. So that's where we're going to begin this discussion. Krishna and Balaram in Dwaraka, and specifically Balaram. Now, as you see in the image, this is where we started this afternoon or this morning. Balaram is here pictured, as he is often pictured in Vrindavan, carrying a plow. Just as Krishna, one of Krishna's name is Giridhari, lifter of the Govardhan hill. Balaram's another name is Haladar, the carrier of the hala, the plow, for agriculture, Krishi Goraksha, agriculture and cow protection, along with trade and commerce. These are the three occupations of Vaishyas. They appeared in a Vaishya community, and the mother of Balaram was Rohini, so another name of Balaram is Rohini Nandana, the son of Rohini. He was originally the son of Devaki, but transferred, we heard this morning, transferred by Krishna's arrangement, transferred from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini, and took birth just a short number of days, 8 days before Krishna appeared. And they grew up together like brothers, and they had affection for one another. They had everything. They were constant companions throughout life, right to the very end, for the 125 years. There was some period of time, we'll hear, that Balaram went off to Mithila, the same place where King Janak was king during Ram's Leela. But he went there to spend 3 years with the king of Mithila because of friendship. We'll start with this. Here's our Hare Krishna mantra. And we'll find in Chaitanya Charitamrita an interesting verse, like kind of a controversial verse. And the controversial verse says, there are some people that say in this Hare Krishna mantra, the name Rama refers to Lord Ramachandra. And some people say in this Hare Krishna mantra, the Rama refers to Balarama. And essentially what Prabhupada, we'll see what Prabhupada has written, but he says they're both right. That's a very nice, elegant solution. If someone says that Rama in Hari Rama is Lord Ramachandra, and someone else says that the Rama in Hari Rama is Sri Balaram, both are correct, because there is no difference between Sri Balarama and Lord Rama. Here in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has stated the same conclusion. Ye rupe jane se taha kahe. Sakala sambhave Krishna kichu mitya nahi. In whatever form one knows the Lord, one speaks of him in that way. In this there is no falsity, since everything is possible in Krishna. Say the same thing in a different way, but it's essentially the same thing. Krishna is very kind. And one of the features of his kindness is that as one approaches him, he discloses himself. As one has feelings of affection for him, Krishna discloses himself. So when one is calling Rama, Krishna will disclose the feature that one is thinking, Lord Ramachandra, or Balarama. It's when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, two examples, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Puri, when he saw the three, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, who are like the forms of the Lord in Dwaraka, Purushottam Kshetra is the name of Puri, the place of the Supreme Person, Purushottama. But he had such affection for Krishna that when he saw Jagannath, he saw Krishna standing there holding his flute. And he became so enlivened, he ran like the wind with his arms outstretched to embrace Krishna and fainted in ecstasy. And the same Lord Jagannath, it is said, when Tulsi, the celebrated author of Ramcharitamanas, a description of Lord Ramchandra's life, went to Jagannath Puri, he saw the form of Lord Ramachandra. You know, the common English saying is, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You've heard that one before? So it is essentially saying the same. In bhakti, the Lord reciprocates. One sees that form because the Lord discloses that form according to one's bhakti. So if you see this or you see that according to bhakti, when calling the name of Lord Ram, that's fine. No problem. If someone calls Lord Ramachandra by the vibration Hari Rama, understanding it to mean, oh, Lord Ramachandra, he is quite right. Similarly, if one says that Hari Rama means, oh, Sri Balaram, he is also right. Those who are aware of the Vishnu Tattva do not fight over these details. No, it's a detail, and it's reciprocal with love. And that's Krishna. He's very kind, and he reciprocates with the love of his devotees. Now you're going to have to listen very carefully. This is a recording. As you know, in our ISKCON temples, we regularly recite Nrsimha prayers. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. This is from Jayadev Goswami's Dasavatar Stotra, from Gita Govinda, a celebrated writing. So there's one coming next, and it's just going to start right at the very beginning. So listen carefully. In fact, you can sing along if you like, and it will give you the song that's sung for Balaram.
जलतापं केशव बहसि बपुषि विशते केशव वसनं जलतापं केशव हलहति भीति मिलित यमुना हलहति भीति मिलित यमुना केशव हलधर रूप रूप जगदीश हरे केशव जय जगदीश हरे.
Different style than we do in ISKCON, but you get the idea. O Keshav, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of plow-wielding Balaram. All glories to you. On your brilliant white body, you wear garments colored like a fresh rain cloud, and the river Yamuna, whom you frighten with the blows of your plow. Now, this is a pastime that took place towards the end of Krishna and Balaram's stay in Dwaraka. We'll see some paintings of that pastime. So we're going to Dwaraka in this evening's discussion, and we'll start from Krishna and Balaram jumping from the burning Pravarshana mountain. You see below, that's the fire that Jarasandha set. And according to the Bhagavatam, the mountain was bigger than any mountain any of us have seen. It was 11 yojanas tall. And 1 yojana equals 8 miles. Have you seen a mountain 8 miles tall? 11 times 8 miles tall? No such mountain. But during Krishna's pastimes, there were such mountains, including Govardhan was very, very tall, but it slowly began shrinking. So after they jumped, because Jarasandha was searching, he couldn't find them. He thought they were in caves, couldn't find them. He decided to kill them. So he lit a fire, put wood all around and a big fire. No problem for Krishna and Balaram. They jumped. They don't look like they were having any anxiety. They look like they're having fun. And the Bhagavatam teaches that unseen by Jarasandha and his followers, celestial chariots descended, carrying the brothers to Dwaraka. So there they are in Dwaraka. And the purpose of Krishna's departing in that way was, in his pastimes, it was time to marry Rukmini, and we'll hear some more. Rukmini was in a predicament, a very severe predicament, because her elder brother Rukmi wanted her to marry someone who there was no way she was going to marry. And he made all arrangements, etc., etc. So Krishna had to return swiftly back to Dwaraka. So after reaching Dwaraka, before Krishna was married, Balaram was married. And Balaram was married, the wife, the first of the 2 wives of Balaram, was Raivataka. It's not discussed in the 10th canto, it's discussed in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam. And the father of Raivataka, his name was Kukudmi, understood that his daughter was very special. I mean, he didn't understand that she's the goddess of fortune, but he understood she was very special. And so searching for a qualified husband, he decided the best solution is to go directly to the abode of Lord Brahma and ask him to make some arrangement. Now, apparently, Kukudmi was not only a powerful king, but he could travel interplanetary travel. So he went to the abode of Lord Brahma. While he was at the abode of Lord Brahma, he was informed by his attendant, he can't see you right now. He's hearing a concert by the Gandharvas. But as soon as he's done, I'll let him know. So some time passed, and Kukudmi was very patient. Lord Brahma is going to help. And when Lord Brahma came and asked what was his purpose, and Kukudmi expressed, I'd like you to help me find a suitable husband for my very qualified daughter. Lord Brahma smiled, chuckled a little, and said, you don't understand how time works. Time here in the Brahmaloka, just a short period of time here in Brahmaloka, in the earthly realm, 27 cycles of the 4 yugas have passed already. Now, how long is one cycle? How long is Kali Yuga? 432,000. And there's 4 yugas. It's not just 4 times 432. It's 1,800,000 solar year. Our solar years is one yuga cycle. And 27 of those have passed. He said, when you go back to the Earth planet, no one's going to know you. You're not going to know anybody. Everything is completely changed. But here's some good news. The good news is, on Earth, Balaram is there. And you can arrange on my behalf for Balaram to be married to your daughter, suitable husband for your daughter. Oh, he was very grateful. Now, this was during Satya Yuga. Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwaraka Yuga, plus 27 yuga cycles. That's a long time. Now, he didn't age, his daughter didn't age, but in Satya Yuga, people were much taller, and in Dwaraka Yuga, much shorter. And so when Balaram saw, as you see in the painting, he was tall, so what he did is he placed his plow on her shoulder and shrunk her down to the right size. And they married. Balaram married Raivataka. There's no description I've been able to find where the second wife of Balaram was arranged, but Varuni, here's a deity in Vrindavan celebrating the pastime where Balaram drank Varuni beverage that seems to be like honey. And he drank so much he became like intoxicated. Of course, he's the Supreme Lord, so it's not the same kind of intoxication that people here have. And so he had 2 consorts, or 2 wives, Varuni and Raivataka. Some of you may have been to Jagannath Puri. Anyone here been to Jagannath Puri? Oh, great. Wow. Okay. So you probably went to the Tota Gopinath temple in Puri. In the Tota Gopinath temple, here's the deities of Balaram and Raivataka on his left or our right, and Varuni on our left or his right. The 2 consorts of Balaram. And in Unchagaon, anyone been to Vrindavan? Okay. And when you've been to Vrindavan, for sure you went to Govardhan Hill. Probably you also went to Varsana, right? Did you go to Varsana? Okay. Near Varsana are the homes of the 8 principal gopis. 8 principal gopis lived in villages with their husbands around, very proximate to Varsana. And one of those villages is Unchagaon. And there's a deity of Raivataka Balaram in Unchagaon. Now that deity of Balaram was found by Narayana Goswami, a very celebrated person, not as well known in ISKCON as the six Goswamis, but a little bit of background. One of the two principal services were given to Rupa and Sanatan: write books and reestablish the places of Krishna's pastimes. Two main services. They did many other things, but the two main services. So while they were still in Vrindavan, Narayana Goswami arrived from South India. There's some detail of his life, which isn't the main focus of this evening, but he came to reside for some number of years, also at Radhakund. Became a very close associate of Raghunath Das Goswami, and he wrote books and discovered some 100 and something places of Krishna's pastimes. One of those things he did was the main deity that's at the temple at the top of the hill in Varsana. He found that deity, and he found the Balaram deity. He had just this uncanny ability to make such discoveries. So that same deity is being worshipped in Unchagaon. Very tall deity, actually. Now, that's Balaram's marriage. And shortly after Rukmini's marriage, we'll hear some more about this in this coming week, but there was a plan that was different than what Rukmini wanted. Rukmini wanted his younger sister to marry whom? Starts with an S. Shishupal. No way was she going to marry Shishupal. So when Krishna came to kidnap Rukmini, drove her away in a chariot, all the other generals and powerful kings were, what? And when chasing after Krishna, her brother took a vow, I won't come back until I have captured Krishna and punished him. Only something else happened. He didn't capture Krishna and punish him. Krishna captured Rukmini and punished him. There we see he took his sword and was cutting off his long hair, leaving little tufts of hair here and there on his head, tied up, as you see. And Rukmini pleaded, although her brother was really doing her a bad deed against the whole rest of the family, but she pleaded on her brother's behalf, spare him. Balaram came just at that time and spoke, these are words directly in the Bhagavatam, to disfigure such a close family member is as good as killing him, therefore he should not be killed, but set free. And many other things were said. Balaram pleaded on his behalf, and he even scolded Krishna because he's the elder brother. You shouldn't have done this. It's not good. You're going to marry him. You're going to marry his sister. It means he's family. You can't do like this. So Krishna let him go. This is chapter 54. One of the next sets of queens married by Krishna in Dwaraka was Satyabhama and Jambavati. Satyabhama was the daughter of Satrajit, or Satrajiti. So Satrajit, pictured here, was not living in Dwaraka, but he was a worshiper of the sun god. And he worshiped the sun god so intensely, so strongly, so abundantly with making offerings to the sun god, that sun god personally appeared in his palace and offered him the Syamantaka jewel. And Satyajit was really happy, saying, you know exactly what I want. He wants wealth. And this Syamantaka jewel was such a jewel that by worshiping it every day, two things. Every day, 70 pounds of gold. 70 pounds. How old are you? Yes. 9? 10. Do you have any idea what your weight is in pounds? 70 pounds, you think? Less than that. Yeah. Well, the Syamantaka jewel produced weight more than your weight in gold every day. And the Syamantaka jewel gave assurance to the worshiper and the place where they resided that there would be no disease, no irregularity of weather, problems that happen all the time in material nature. He would be protected. So he was very proud. Oh, was he proud. And it caused a problem. What eventually it caused was his death. Without all the details, he was killed to get the jewel. And he, Satyajit, was the father of one of Krishna's wives. And her name was Satyabhama, the daughter of Satyajit. At that time, Krishna and Balaram were in Hastinapur because there was this report that the Pandavas and Kunti had been killed. You know the story. You see you nodding your heads. The report was that they died in the house of Lak. So they went to attend the funeral, knowing that they hadn't been killed. Knowing that they had, because Krishna and Balaram are omniscient, but they went anyways. So while they were absent from Dwaraka, that's when Satyajit was killed. Satyabhama knew what to do. She put the body of her father in oil to preserve it, sent a messenger, bring Krishna quickly. Krishna came quickly. And when he found out what had happened, they concluded that the person who did the murder was Shatadhanva. So you see across the top of the screen. They chased Shatadhanva. Shatadhanva he knew he was in big trouble. He gave the Syamantaka jewel to Akrura. And he ran for his life. And he had a very special horse that could travel long distances. Now the distance from Dwaraka, which is all the way on the west coast, in Mithila, which is so far east, the horse died just on the outside of Mithila. Krishna caught him. Krishna took his life, searched his clothing, and the Syamantaka jewel wasn't there. So at this time, Balaram decided, I've come this far, you can go back to Dwaraka. I'm going to stay with King of Mithila for some time. Now later, towards the end of the 10th canto, we find that Krishna personally took a journey with his army and ministers all the way from Dwaraka, all the way to have a personal meeting and spend some time with the king of Mithila. His name was Bahalashva, very dear devotee of Krishna. So Balaram stayed there for several years, and while he was there, this celebrated event of Balaram training Duryodhana and fighting with a club took place there. It's one of those puzzles about Balaram's life. We'll discuss that shortly. Here's an image that's meant to depict what the Syamantaka jewel might have looked like. So while Balaram had saved Rukmi's life, later in Dwaraka, there having activities together, and Rukmini was making fun of Balaram in his playing of chess. As you see, by the side of the chessboard, there's a pile of gold coins. And Rukmi kept winning, and Rukmi kept winning, and Rukmi kept winning. He was making fun of Balaram. So Balaram took his club and smashed him. Don't offend Balaram, please. Later, these are a flow of some of Balaram's activities while in Dwaraka. He was pleading with Krishna, go back to Vrindavan. The residents of Vrindavan are missing you so much. They're in such anxiety. The reports are they could just give up their life in a moment. Please go. And Krishna didn't go, and Krishna didn't go. Finally, Balaram decided he would go. So he went, and and spent several months in Vrindavan. And one of the celebrated activities, we read about it on Friday evening, he, among other things, performed his own rasa dance with his own set of gopis, meaning there were a different set of gopis than the gopis with whom Krishna had rasa dance, but he performed rasa dance while visiting in Vrindavan. And during the rasa dance, as you see, it's the full moon night, and he was enjoying like anything, and they were so happy, happy, happy. And as the course of that enjoyment, one of the demigods decided, Varuna decided to make some beverage, a Varuni beverage available. He deposited in trees a honey kind of drink. Balaram really liked it. He took a lot. He started behaving as if he was intoxicated. And in the evening, he wanted to cool off in the river Yamuna. So he requested the river Yamuna to come near. And the river Yamuna saw the state of this person and thought, best to not go there. So he became angry. And as you see, he took his plow and started dragging his plow in such a way, and it told the river Yamuna, personified, because of your offense, I'm going to break you into little tributaries. Now, the place, we read about it this Friday evening, is a place in Vrindavan. Today you can visit, or when pandemic is over, you can visit, called Ramghat. It's a ghat along the shore of the river Yamuna, on the western side of the river Yamuna. Yamuna finally, when she saw Balaram's anger, she came and fell at his lotus feet. And she offered very beautiful prayers to Lord Balaram. Here's some of them. Rama, Rama, O mighty armed one, I know nothing of your prowess. With a single portion of yourself, a Kangshena, you hold up the earth, O Lord of the universe. So what this means is one of Balaram's expansions, we heard about this on Friday, one of Balaram's expansions is Sheshanag, or Anantashesh. And the expansion of Balaram serves Krishna by holding up not only the earth, but the whole universe. With a single portion of yourself, Ekankshina, you hold up the earth, O Lord of the universe. O soul of the universe, I didn't understand your position as the supreme Godhead, but now I have surrendered unto you, and you are always kind to your devotees. So sometime after this pastime of Balaram visiting, he returned to Dwaraka. Again, Balaram is in Dwaraka. And in the same place, we visited this. When we visited Dwaraka, we took a group of devotees, a yatra, Dwaraka yatra. It's all recorded in so forth. We visited Raivataka Mountain. Raivataka Mountain is said, at least the Tourism Bureau says, that's the place where Balaram was married. And so we went there, and so Balaram went there himself also to perform dancing with damsels while he was there. Dvidvida gorilla wanted to take the girls, the young ladies that Balaram was performing dancing pastimes with, whisk them away. And he was very, very gross. He he turned his backside and showed his bare backside to the ladies without the gross language of the Bhagavatam, and just tried to whisk them away, just completely ignoring Balaram. Something very similar to what happened in Vrindavan pastime. You know the pastime in Vrindavan where it was during Holi, Krishna and Balaram were dancing with young gopis, and Shankachuda came. He had a shanka, a conch jewel in his turban. He tried taking the gopis away, and as he was taking the gopis away, they cried, "Krishna, please protect us. This is a horrible person." So similarly, at Raivataka Mountain, the girls pictured here were begging Balaram to protect them. So Balaram threw a stone at Dvidvida. Dvidvida caught the stone and dropped it and picked up a big tree, broke it in half, and smacked Balaram in the chest. That was it. He was finished. Balaram decided it was time to finish this demon. So he took his club, Dvidvida took another tree, and there was a big battle that ensued, and Balaram finished Dvidvida. There are many prayers to Balaram, and mention of his killing Dvidvida is always mentioned. Now, much later, Krishna and Balaram are still in Dwaraka, and by this time, Krishna has a son. Well, he has several sons. Pradyumna was the first son of Krishna, but later Jambavati, who Krishna married, was wife number 2, right after Rukmini. She had a son named Samba. And Samba went to attend the Swayamvar of Duryodhana's daughter. Duryodhana's daughter was named Lakshmana. So he went, and when the Swayamvar was going on, Samba did what was common at the time, a Kshatriya style. He just whisked her away. No way was Duryodhana going to let that happen. So Duryodhana and many generals surrounded Samba, captured him, and put him in jail. Big mistake. Samba was gone from Dwaraka for a long time, and they began to inquire what happened to Samba. And they found out he's in jail in Hastinapur. Ugrasena was furious, gathered the entire, this is before the Kurukshetra battle, gather the entire Yadu army, let us march to Hastinapur and finish Duryodhana and release Samba. Now, one of Balaram's characteristics is he liked being a peacemaker. You know, there's some people that have that kind of propensity, like being a peacemaker. So he said, let me go. I have this relationship with Duryodhana, and I think I can make a peaceful rather than a warring solution. So they agreed. Some ministers accompanied him. He set up camp outside Hastinapur. and sent a messenger. Balaram has arrived. He would like audience with Duryodhana. Duryodhana sent his ministers welcoming Balarama, because Duryodhana eventually begins to see Krishna as his guru. So what's the good fortune of your coming to visit us? And he said, I've come to get release of Samba, and I want Samba to marry Lakshmana. Let Duryodhana know that's my purpose. When the messengers took that message back to Duryodhana, it was like civil war inside Hastinapur. No way. No way. And when that message went to Balaram, as you see in the painting, he pulled out his club, his plow, and with his plow, he started dragging the entire city of Hastinapur into the Ganges. And the whole city was trembling and shaking, and then they had this realization, don't mess with Balaram. So they did a 180. They came out with gifts and whatever you want. Samba can marry Lakshmana. When do you want the wedding? And everything was nice. No battle. But Balaram is all powerful. He has a soft side and he has a very powerful side. So his exhibition of power with his plow comes in chapter 68. As some of you may know, that the Bhagavatam is not necessarily in all circumstances chronological. Here's a distinction. Mahabharata and Ramayana, they're in another category of history. They're called itihasa. One of the rules in itihasa is they're chronological. But in the Puranas, they're also historical, but they're not necessarily chronological. So what comes next is way over in chapter 86. This was chapter 68. So many chapters later, back in Dwaraka, Balarama wants Krishna and Balaram's younger sister, Subhadra. Subhadra was a sister. She's the goddess of fortune. She was born as the daughter of Vasudeva and Devaki. After the 8th child of Devaki came Subhadra, the daughter. And Subhadra is now with Krishna and Balaram in Dwaraka. And Balaram wants, as the elder brother, he wants his friend, or the one who he was showing affection to at least, Duryodhana, to marry Subhadra. No way was Subhadra going to marry Duryodhana. No way. But Balaram was Balaram. He's not only the elder brother, he's very strong. You know the story. I'm just narrating. It's found in chapter 86. Arjuna, at this time, this is before Kurukshetra battle, he was on tour to holy places. There's some history of how that happened. And one of the holy places he went to was Dwaraka. And when he went into Dwaraka, he went in disguise as a sannyasi. And when he went in disguise as a sannyasi, it was known, Krishna advised Arjuna, Balaram likes entertaining sannyasis. So if you have some idea that you may like my sister, come as a sannyasi, Balaram will invite you. And sure enough, there's a nice painting, Balaram's there. There's Arjuna with big shoulders and big arms, dressed as a sannyasi, looking at Subhadra, Subhadра's looking at him, and chemistry started to happen between the two. She wanted to marry Arjuna. In private, Krishna asked Subhadra, what's your heart's desire? And she said, well, she was embarrassed that sannyasi that has come here, I kind of like him. I'd like to marry him. But it was Arjuna. And Arjuna wanted to marry, and she wanted to marry him, so that was it. Krishna started making arrangements. Although it was going against what Balaram wanted. But here's part of the puzzle. The puzzle is, sometimes in Krishna's pastimes, he enjoys more when his very intimate devotees take a position in opposition and make some obstacle. Here's two examples. One example is the gopis. Sometimes the gopis would speak very heavy, vamya, it's called. Because of their intimacy of love, they would say contradictory things directly to Krishna, scold him, chastise him, and Krishna likes that. It's not he likes being scolded, he likes that intimacy of love, even more so than the right-wing gopis, Chandravali and her group. Krishna likes it. There's another example, and that's Grandfather Bhishma. When Grandfather Bhishma took the position of taking a vow that I will kill Arjuna, Krishna liked it. Not that he would kill Arjuna, but it gave him an opportunity to interact with Bhishma, where Bhishma, a great hero, great fighter, no one could, even Parshuram couldn't defeat him. Grandfather Bhishma was so powerful. But when he took this vow to kill Arjuna, Krishna liked it. And when Bhishma was firing arrows and hitting the chest of Krishna, he liked it. And when he picked up the broken chariot wheel of Arjuna, Bhishma liked it. It's a loving exchange that's not what you would expect, picking up a broken chariot wheel and going to smash Krishna, and Krishna likes it. But Krishna likes it from his loving devotee. So sometimes, and in the case of his apparent affection for Duryodhana, Balaram was creating a situation where there was an obstacle that seemed impossible to overcome, and Krishna overcame it. Krishna likes such exchanges, especially with his devotees. That's how to understand this mystery. So Arjuna came and kidnapped. Even Krishna gave the plan, and there you see the chariot is going off, and there goes Subhadra. This is now with Balaram. Balaram is furious. This person that came to see me as a sannyasi was actually Arjuna, and now he's kidnapping my sister when I want my sister to marry someone else. Gather the entire Yadu army, go catch him, thrash him to pieces. But before we do that, I have to go ask permission from Krishna, because he would only act in concert with Krishna. And Krishna smiled and said, no, I think it's very good. How do you think it's very good? Because this is very noble in Kshatriya families, with the daughter in her Swayamvar is kidnapped by a powerful king or prince. It's very good. It's very noble. And besides, if our sister marries into that dynasty of the Kuru dynasty, this will be even good for both dynasties through marriage. It's a good plan. In fact, instead of sending armies to capture him, send gifts, invite him to come back, and let the marriage take place right away, right here in Dwaraka. And Balaram submitted, because as we discussed on Friday, it was Saturday evening, Balaram loves to serve Krishna. Even when he takes a position that seems contrary, there's nothing other in Balaram's heart than wanting to please Krishna. If Krishna wants something, just like the Kurukshetra battle, he didn't Krishna chose to not take part. Balaram chose to not take part because they're cousins and he doesn't want to take either side. So he went on pilgrimage. He went on pilgrimage when he understood the battle is something that Krishna wants. When he understood the battle is something that Krishna wants, he stepped back. He didn't want, but Krishna wants, so he stepped back. So when he was on tour of holy places, now we're going to chapter 79, which is not in sequence, but this is chronological sequence. He went to holy places. He went to holy places to purify those holy places. And one of the places he went was Naimisharanya, and the sages at Naimisharanya told him of this wicked creature, Balvala. It's reminiscent of Ram's pastimes. What's the name of our younger generation people here? What's the name of the first demon that Ram killed? Yeah, I'm looking at your son up here. Do you know the name? Tataka? Tataka? Never heard? Tataka, have you heard? Tataka. Taraka. Tataka. Taraka. Tataka. A female who was disturbing the offerings of the sages and the sacrifices. So that's what this Balvala was doing. You see in the painting, if these lights up in the ceiling can go down, can these lights, someone know how to turn the lights out here? These lights can go out and then you can see the screen better because it's a dark image. Up in the sky, one more. But right there, you can see better now. So there's Balvala up in the sky. They're the sages doing their sacrifice. And as they were performing their sacrifice, same as Tataka did, he threw down pus and blood and stool and urine and dirty things and defiled the sacrificial arena. Balaram reached up with his plow, grabbed him around the neck, pulled him to the ground. He had his big, powerful trident and smashed him with his club. He pulled him down with his plow and smashed him with his club. Finished Balvala. This is while Balaram is on tour. In the same chapter, we find the history of Balaram going to a place where Ramaharshan Sutta was reciting the Vedas, and while he was reciting the Vedas, Balaram entered into that assembly, and everyone in the assembly stood except for one person, Ramaharshan. So Balaram could understand he's not qualified. He has no idea of how, he's speaking the message of the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead comes and he stays seated without respecting the person for whom he's reciting all these Vedas. He's not qualified. And so he took a small blade of grass, touched that small blade of grass to his heart, and pierced his heart, and Ramaharshan was finished right there. So the sages were like, what to do now? We're having this katha. And so Balaram said, if you like, I can bring him back to life. They said, no. Whatever you've done is whatever you've done. But what are we to do now? And Balaram suggested that the son is the representative of the father. So Ramaharshan's son was named Sutta Goswami. He can continue narrating. So Sutta Goswami continued. Balaram continued on his pilgrimage. He heard in Kurukshetra that Bhima and Duryodhana were going to have a big battle with clubs. there's a nice verse where he says, he comes and speaks to them both. He had affection for both because he taught both. He said, Bhima is more powerful, but Duryodhana has more skill. So neither of you are going to be able to defeat the other. So please put down your weapons. But there was such enmity between them that neither of them could put down their weapon. And so the battle went on. Now, the particular illustration shows there's Balaram in the background. You see him holding his club and plow. And there's Krishna next to him with the effulgence, Krishna and Balaram. Now, whether they actually sat there and watched the battle, I haven't come across that explanation, but that's the illustration here. And after the battle was over, Yudhishthira becomes the emperor, and Balaram embraces Yudhishthira and accepts him as the new emperor of the world. Now they're all back in Dwaraka, and the demoniac kings have been eliminated. It's time for Krishna's departure. He arranges for the residents of Vrindavan to return to their unmanifest or aprakat lila. He then goes to Dwaraka and arranges for the residents of Dwaraka to end their pastimes on earth. So the scene that you see here, this is again Samba dressed like a woman, holding in a sari, holding his belly, but the belly is not a pregnant mother, it's a lump of iron. And the Brahmanas, you see Narada Muni standing there, and other many sages. They had just done a yajna at the home of Vasudeva in Dwaraka, and nearby they were assembling together. Samba offended them, and the sages said, not only you want to know whether this woman will be, that her child will be a boy or a girl, that our prediction is, our curse is, that the entire Yadu dynasty will be destroyed by the lump of iron that's underneath that cloth. So the boys went back and informed Ugrasena what had just happened. The Yadu dynasty has been cursed to die. And Ugrasena consulted his ministers. The ministers advised that that lump of iron be ground into little fine powder, and the powder being thrown into the sea. The powder was thrown into the sea, it washed up along the shore, and the reeds growing along the shore made the reeds, the iron made the reeds strong like steel. There was a fight that took out when one Yadu insulted another Yadu, and they were very angry, and they took sides, and they defeated each other. After this disappearance of the Yadu dynasty at Prabhas comes the pastime of Balaram's disappearance, and we're almost done. Very interesting description. Balaram sat by the side of the sea underneath a tree, and from his mouth came a form of Anantashesh. The Anantashesh became situated on the sea. Balaram was seated on Anantashesh, and Anantashesh flew Balaram back to the spiritual world. Pretty interesting way to depart. And that's the conclusion of Balaram's activities in Dwaraka after having left Mathura. Those of you that visit Vrindavan, you certainly know the main deity of the Krishna Balaram temple is Krishna Balaram, pictured here. These aren't today's deity dressing. These are some older forms. The forms of Krishna Balaram are certainly celebrated in ISKCON and outside of ISKCON. Prabhupada personally installed them. Here's Krishna Balaram on Chandan Yatra, and another year with a darker colored Chandan, and the small Krishna Balaram deities dressed in Chandan with fruits and watermelons and mangoes and everything in season. So Krishna Balaram are celebrated, and we're honoring them on Balaram's appearance day. Balaram Jayanti Ki Jai. Okay, we went over an hour. It's now 5:20 something. If there's any discussion, we have a little bit of time. I think we can take some questions. Or your thoughts, comments. Yeah. Why was he the older brother? Because he wanted to be. Why he wanted to be the older brother? Well, one explanation that's given is in their previous incarnation, the older brother was Ram and the younger brother was Lakshmana. Lakshmana didn't like that Ram was getting into difficulty, and as the younger brother, he was serving him and all that. So, not going to do that again. I'll appear as the older brother. Still, his mood was service, although he was the older brother. But there were some leelas where it was convenient for Balaram to be the older brother and take a position that was not exactly in alignment with Krishna's desire, at least apparently. So Krishna could overcome that obstacle, because Krishna enjoyed doing that. So for Krishna's pleasure, he became the elder brother. That's the better explanation. Rasa. Back there?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Very wonderful, nice class. Thank you so much. So one thing, Maharaj, that came into my mind was listening to Balramji's pastimes. Like some pastimes are like it was showing the prowess of Balram, like
Yes.
hitting the club. So
Yes.
how to understand that in respect to, like sometimes it looked like he just wanted to prove the point. That's why he did it. So how to understand in a spiritual sense, like. Of course, there is an intent of Krishna there. I mean, do you understand my question?
I think I understand your question. Commonly, violence is thought of as a bad thing. So why is a good person, transcendental person, not just good, doing violence? Because it's dissonant. It grates one's sensibility. He should be something besides violent. Prabhupada addressed this many times, many times. I can say from my subjective experience, I became a Hare Krishna devotee during the Vietnamese War. And it was a big deal about, peace and love and nonviolence. And so Prabhupada had to address it. And he did. That the function of a Kshatriya, Chat means hurt, and Triya or Trayate means to deliver. The function or the duty, the responsibility of a Kshatriya is to protect people. So the police force for law-abiding individuals, they're welcome. For a criminal, they're fearful. Prabhupada told a story when he was a young man. There was a robbery in a friend's home. So some police officers were brought to investigate the robbery. And as they were coming from their car heading for the man's home, they saw off in the distance some people running. And the police officers were laughing. And Prabhupada asked them, why are they running? He said, we don't know what crime they've done, but they see us and they're afraid. So for law-breaking people, police enforcement is fearful. But there has to be police enforcement because there'll always be lawbreakers. So we have to uphold the law. So people that are law-abiding, they're very happy when they see the police because we're protected. So Krishna and Balaram appear to annihilate the overabundance of demoniac kings. So that violence is only necessary when there's transgression of law, of God's law. Just like police are not supposed to go use brute force on everybody, because they like using brute force. But whereas law enforcement, depending upon the circumstance, there has to be some readiness for strength. So like with Balvala, he wasn't showing strength until Balvala did what Balvala did, or Dvidvida did what Dvidvida did. And Ram did the same thing. He would speak politely to whoever, and if they were like, even Rakshasas, but if they would start to attack him, it was his purpose in coming, to relieve the Jadastan forest or the Dandak forest from Rakshasas and relieve the earth from Rakshasas. That's why he descended, because he was appealed to by the demigods. So force is needed. When force is needed, it's used, and otherwise it's not used. And these demons were like really big demons. They weren't just like, troublemakers. They're powerful demons that even the demigods didn't have the capacity to deal with because they were so powerful.
But looking, like in some of the situations, like Balaram actually if I take an example of Samba, when Samba was arrested, Balaram went and wanted to
be a peacemaker.
Then. And then when Subhadra was taken, he actually wanted to make a war and bring her back. So, how to understand the controversy?
He's the personality of Godhead, and he was going in a peaceful mood, like Krishna went in a peaceful mood to Hastinapur, knowing what the result would be. Now, in Balaram's case, he was hoping, but he was insulted. So these are people you can't reason with. So some show of strength. He didn't have a battle. He just used his plow and started dragging the city towards the Ganges, and they were like, "Uh-oh." We didn't recognize how strong you were. No, with powerful people, there's often this consideration: how strong is the enemy? When the enemy is insuperable, you don't mess. So he was just a show of strength. He didn't harm anybody. The city wasn't pulled into the sea or into the river.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for enlightening lecture. I have one question, Maharaj. Looks like Lord Balaram was so much affectionate towards Duryodhana.
Yes, it does look like that.
Yeah, even he accepted Duryodhana Guru as his one of name. Though he was not on path of religion, Duryodhana, but why Lord Balaram was so much affectionate towards him?
I addressed it. I'll do it again. He purposefully, or not by Krishna's arrangement, sometimes his dearest devotees take a position that looks contrary to Krishna's position, and even contrary to Dharma. And the reason is it adds rasa to their relationship with that devotee. That's the principal reason. It's a rasa reason. It's Krishna enjoys when there's some opposition, and it's formidable opposition. And who can be more formidable than Balaram? Now, one can argue from a theistic point of view, well, Balaram could have figured out another way to, provide some opposition besides supporting Duryodhana. But so there's other features in Balaram's character. One mentioned, he's a peacemaker. Another is he's a person by personality trait. He's balanced. He held Bhima very dear. He held Duryodhana very dear. He held both of them very dear, although they were in opposition to each other. Now, for you and me to say, look, Duryodhana is bad. He's adharmic. So how can you have affection for an adharmic person? So he had affection for the person, not for the adharma. And Duryodhana, so he gave his mercy to, he is the original spiritual master. So he gave his mercy. The ultimate answer is rasa, but there's other subordinate reasons. He gave mercy, but how did he give mercy? He gave mercy what's called apara vichar. It's, apparent circumstances. He gave him power. He gave him the ability to fight. He gave him what looked like, his special mercy, but he didn't give him what real mercy is. Real mercy is Krishna prema. And he didn't have the loving relationship towards Krishna or to the Pandavas. So he was bereft. But he gave mercy because he's merciful. No, here's another. It's not the same, but it's similar. Why did Maharaj Parikshit spare the personality of Kali? Maharaj Parikshit knew who this person is and the kind of sinful activity he should be put to death. But he didn't. Why didn't he? Because this is the age of Kali. It's Krishna's plan. So I don't interfere. I'm a devotee. I don't interfere with Krishna's plan. So Krishna had some higher, you can say, yogamaya purposes for Duryodhana to be in opposition to Arjuna and Bhima. And Bhima would be victorious. Krishna gave the plan how he would defeat Duryodhana. Krishna gave the means for him to defeat Duryodhana by telling Duryodhana, don't keep your blindfold, don't keep the lower part of your body exposed when you stand before Gandhari. It would be wrong. He knew. So there's a Leela of Krishna in which Balaram was playing a part that to you and me looked like wrong. No, and Krishna has that transcendentalness about him that moralists don't understand.
Yeah, Maharaj.
He was
Is this
playing a part in Krishna's Leela. Balarama is playing a part in Krishna because there's nothing else in Balaram's heart but pleasing Krishna. So the obvious, just circle back to the question. If Balaram doesn't want anything other than what Krishna wants, and Duryodhana is inimical to Krishna and inimical to the Pandavas, then how can he be supportive? It's illogical. So there's got to be some other or higher or some not readily visible reason. Because there's nothing in Balaram's heart but wanting to please Krishna. So it's a desire to please Krishna in some easily understood or easily seen way to unfold Krishna's pastimes. Why did the gopis take, contrary position to Krishna? Because they have only love for Krishna in their heart. How could they do that? They would talk back to him and say, heavy things. And Krishna liked it. It's for Krishna's enjoyment, because there's nothing else in their heart but Krishna's enjoyment. It's part of Krishna. It's part of the mystery of Krishna's Leela. For moralists, it doesn't make sense. Go ahead.
In the same line, Bhishma Pitama, he didn't follow the instruction, Sarva Dharman Parityajane. Still, he was sticking with his vow and all. And he chose fighting against these Kauravas. So, is there the same reason he wanted to increase the rasas?
He wanted Krishna. Prabhupada answers your question in Canto 1, Chapter 9. Krishna wanted to show that doesn't matter who you are. If you don't protect women, you're finished. So, Grandfather Bhishma could have protected Draupadi and he didn't. Finished. So, to finish him, he was on the wrong side. No, he had his extra. If you read carefully in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks of Bhima in not complimentary terms. He says, even they may be avaricious. Right? Because he was financially being maintained, and therefore he is obliged to support those who he is being financially maintained by. Now that's a lower principle than the higher principle. But he conducted himself by that lower principle, by Krishna's arrangement to teach a lesson. Protect women. That was what Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anything else in the room? Do we have anything online? Anything online?
We have one question, Maharaj. It's more or less same question that.
Same question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same question.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Time for the next activity. Looks like take out prasadam for all of you. Thank you all for coming. You want to give her the microphone?
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. And thank you, everybody, for joining and attending the classes. Just wanted to let you know that Maharaj is here with us for this entire week. Every morning at 7:35, Maharaj will be giving the class on Uddhava Gita. Whoever can make it to the temple, you can. But otherwise, it will be broadcasted on Facebook and ISKCON of Phoenix YouTube, both of them. So you're welcome to watch there. And every evening, we will be hosting different houses. There's home programs. Again, you can watch it on Facebook, on YouTube, and they are going to be available. So thank you so much, Maharaj, for visiting us. The other announcement, you all are aware, Sri Krishna Janmashtami is upcoming on the 30th, and we are already preparing for that. And you're welcome to look on Facebook and other media for all the information. Darshan will be open at 4:30 and also in the afternoon also. Darshan will start from 4 o'clock up until midnight Aarti on the day of Janmashtami. More details on Facebook and email communications too. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai.